a lady saw me training in my new gym and approached me and said, the way you train is so inspiring. I would love to work with you. And that is what I want people to think. And I'm looking for the opportunity, not in the first sentence, but the opportunity once we've gained some rapport to share the way I eat and frame that as something that has such huge impact and benefit to the way that I look.
Hi, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. On the show, you'll hear interviews with innovative creative artists, entrepreneurs, business executives, and thought leaders. You'll have a front row seat as they explore their internal motivations that inspire them to grow, achieve, and innovate. Get their insights and realizations as I tease out answers to questions they've never even pondered before. This episode is brought to you by my upcoming book, Get Booked, a performer's guide to working with booking agents in the gig economy. Are you ready to thrive in gigs, big or small? Start with my Nailing Your Holiday Gigs checklist, your ultimate guide to crushing the holiday season. Grab it in the show notes and mark your calendar. The book drops January 2025. Get ready to go pro, book smarter, and own the gig economy. And now, let's get on with the show. Hello, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I know you have things you could be doing that aren't listening to this. And heck, you might be listening to something while you're doing this. And that's great too. I am thankful that you are taking the time, though. Always grateful for your attention. I am also really grateful for this week's guest. You know that this is going to be really close to my heart because Kate Galli is a vegan health coach and an author and a podcast host. Woohoo! I'm so excited. Kate is a qualified master personal trainer, life coach, NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and she's also completed the Cornell University Plant-Based Nutrition Certificate Program. Kate first got into fitness as a way to transform her own body and confidence, and she spent the last 18 years helping thousands of people sculpt a body and life they love, and over the past 8 years has focused on vegan health coaching, as that's one of the most powerful ways to advocate for the animals and to be fit and strong and healthy. Kate, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome.
Isolde, it is my huge pleasure to be here.
I am I'm all a titter right now because I think the word in Disney they called it Twitter-pated, when you're like, oh, I'm just all everywhere. I'm very excited to talk to you for a variety of reasons, but the biggest thing is you don't see a lot. You see a lot of health coaches, you see a lot of fitness coaches, but you don't see a lot of vegan health coaches. And before we do anything else, let's just jump right in and talk to me about that journey of going from being a personal master trainer to transitioning into or transforming into a vegan health coach. How did that happen for you, and where do you see it going in the future?
So I had been a personal trainer for around about a decade before I became vegan. And at that point, I mean, to backtrack even further, I became vegetarian as a 16-year-old. If I'd known what I now know, I would have become vegan as a 16-year-old. However, I didn't. So at
Right.
that point in time, when I became vegan, I'd been a personal trainer for a decade. I was following and I don't follow this now, obviously, but I was following a very low carbohydrate, high protein, vegetarian lifestyle. I had the body aesthetically that I wanted. However, I will say now my approach to nutrition was not very balanced.
Hmm.
And I saw the documentary Cowspiracy, and I learnt that I'd been lied to, that we've all been lied to, and that if I was vegetarian for the animals, I needed to be vegan for the animals. And it was pretty much an overnight transition so far as my nutrition, and then a little bit more gradually so far as everyone else. However, to your point, I was already the somewhat, I guess, a little bit of a freak in the very gym bro male environment gym that I already worked in. I was already the weird one for being vegetarian, and they would have admitted that I was fit and strong and healthy and never got sick and never missed work. However, they thought it was weird that I didn't eat meat. So
Mm,
when I walked into the gym and announced I'm now becoming vegan, I remember one of the gents, one of the other trainers, he said, "Well, goodbye lean muscle mass."
mm,
Obviously, he was wrong. Thankfully, he was wrong. However, I was hesitant early days myself as well. I thought, I'm doing this for the animals. It's not about my vanity. I might lose some muscle. I might gain some fat. That would be disappointing. However, it's about more than me.
mm,
And so as I made that transition from veggie to vegan, I was super diligent, more diligent than I probably needed to be so far as all the macro and micronutrients, because I knew people were watching. I knew that other trainers were watching. I knew my clients were watching. And I wanted to do it right because I had a feeling that it would make the lifestyle, the vegan lifestyle, look bad if I didn't do it
mm,
really well.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was the approach, and long story short, obviously it's been only good. I didn't put on fat or lose muscle or lose strength. The benefits it's only been positive benefits since I made that change, I guess 8.5 years ago now.
That's amazing, and I love it, love it, love it. I went vegetarian back in 1987, so a very long time ago. And I didn't go vegan myself
Yes.
until my best friend said to me, Isolda, you do know what they do with dairy cows, don't you? And I went, no.
Mm.
And she told me, and I went, well, I guess now I'm vegan. And what's interesting about that is when I went vegan, and it was a number of years ago, it felt a little bit like you say, this sort of feeling of kind of like you're flag waving, whether or not you mean to be. Your flag,
Mm.
you're the standard bearer. And so when you talk about being a health coach and feeling like you didn't want to make veganism look bad, I wonder what kind of interactions you had with clients when they came to you and you were a vegan health coach. Did you talk to them about veganism? Did you let them come to it themselves? How did you approach being vegan when you were working with your clients?
I could have done it better. I will admit, Isolde, I was pretty flag wavy early days. I wore the little singlet to work, vegan muscle killing workouts, not animals. I wore it to every other gym I trained at proudly. And I probably was, well, I certainly was an angry vegan early days. As I said, I found out I'd been lied to. I'd spent 23 years vegetarian for the animals and they were still dying, and I was not happy about that. And at that point in time, most of my clients had been with me for a very long period of time. They'd come on board as meat eaters with a vegetarian diet and with a trainer that had a vegetarian diet, and now I transitioned to vegan, and they weren't that receptive to hearing about it early
Mhm,
days. And I probably sold it wrong early days because I led with the ethics and the
mhm,
why and the cruelty. And I shared everything that I was learning because I thought that would be super impactful in making other people change as
mhm,
well. And who would have thought that wasn't impactful? What I've learned is just leading with deliciousness. And so
mhm,
now I talk about the delicious food that I make and how it's so much more diverse than what it used to be, and all the recipe wins and maybe the funny recipe flops because they happen as well. And I talk about the abundant plant protein and all the fiber. And so I just focus on the deliciousness now. And I will say a lot of my clients over that period of time, they progressed to much more plant forward, some of them more than others, and they saw health benefits for that. However, not one old existing client became 100% full vegan for the animals. So, I mean, I guess that I don't know, that's still sad and a little bit frustrating. You can be a positive influence, but people are going to make that lifestyle change at the time that works for them and for the reason that feels right for them as well.
It's so interesting that you say that. I feel a little bit like in that moment I believe it's Maya Angelou who said, when you know better, you do better. And so
Mm.
I share your frustration in many ways. And I too post a
Yeah.
lot of uh my recipe sort of successes and my ridiculous fails because I can't bake to save my life. But what's interesting is this notion of I would call myself an ethical vegan. I wish that I were a more healthy vegan. But there it is.
Mm.
But at the same time, to me, when we're talking with other people and you professionally, they're coming to you because you know more than they do, right? That's the whole point of coming to
Yes.
a coach, is that you know more than they do. So I would love to find out from you, as you've pivoted, as you've made these changes, as you've incorporated them into your life and into your work one way or the other, how do you envision moving forward with your clients? Because they're going to still keep coming to you because obviously you're good at what you do. But what do you said you could have done it differently when you first started working with people as a vegan, but what do you envision doing differently in the future now that you know what you know?
Well, that is a really interesting point because I was a personal trainer in Sydney for 18 years and I was at capacity for the past 15 years. I haven't really taken on new clients. My clients have stuck with me, they've referred to me. I haven't needed to get new clients, and that's been lovely. However, I made a lifestyle change to move to the Sunshine Coast here in Australia, which is a much slower lifestyle. I partially made that change because I wrote a book last year. It's doing well. It's enabled me to cut back on PT, not finish PT, but it's enabled me to cut back a lot. And I wanted a slower, healthier lifestyle away
Mm,
from the big cities. Sydney's not as big as New York. However, it's still a big city and it's all hustle. And so I left all those dear clients that had been with me for well over a decade behind, and I'm starting fresh with new clients here. And so now I'm literally right in the middle of deciding, how much do I lead with the fact that creating a healthy, fit, strong, compassionate vegan world is my mission. That is my end game, and I'm pretty uncompromising on it.
mhm.
However, it's going to be off-putting to the average very non-vegan client that I meet in my new gym. So I'm not sure yet. I think I sell them on the benefit to them of training with me first. We build rapport and trust and respect first. And as food comes up, which it always does, I'm completely transparent and share with them how I eat and a little bit of why I eat that way. However, I focus more on the health benefits of the lifestyle and obviously the deliciousness. That is the approach I'm thinking I'll be taking. However, it's a little bit of a work in progress here.
Mm, hmm. And it's interesting because there is room for an evolution as you figure out what works and what doesn't work in this new area that you're living in and all of that. But it seems to me, and I love your mission, your vision to create a fit, strong, happy, healthy, compassionate vegan world. I That's
Yeah.
phenomenal. I it's not just one thing though, and that's there's a lot of disagreement and argument in the vegan community about whether or not you should be an ethical vegan or a health vegan and I think I honestly poppycock. That's kind of where I go with it because I feel like if people are leaving
Mm-hmm.
animals off their plates, I'm okay with however they're leaving animals off their plates. However, with
Yes.
the fitness, that part of it, I would love it if you would talk to me about that facet of bringing in compassion, right? That's the thing that really makes me go, "Oh." And it kind of stops me in my tracks because compassion to me and kindness are two of the most important words in any language because that is it's a way of focusing your life. If you're going to be compassionate, if you're going to be kind, that focuses your life in a very different direction than if compassion and kindness are not part of it. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how compassion and having that perspective can affect your overall health, whether you're vegan or not.
That's a great complex question. I want to first start on, I guess, the fitness component and just as you shared in the very beginning, I walk the talk and I see that the way I look and perform in the gym is an amazing opportunity to advocate for the animals. Just
Mm,
last week, a lady saw me training in my new gym and approached me and said, the way you train is so inspiring. I would love to work with you. And that is what I want people to think. And I'm looking for the opportunity, not in the first sentence, but the opportunity once we've gained some rapport to share the way I eat and frame that as something that has such huge impact and benefit to the way that I look so far and how that can be the case for her as well. So far as how compassion works into it, I mean, it's everything, really. It's the reason we became vegan, or it's the reason so many of us became vegan. However, my learning is that self compassion is just as important, especially when we make a huge lifestyle change, especially when the lifestyle change is not the norm in the society that we live in. To
mhm,
have that self compassion, to know how to manage our self care, manage our interactions with others. I see exercise as a huge, vital, keystone habit act of self compassion.
mm.
Whenever I'm prioritizing my own workout, which is many times a week, it's not, ugh, I have to train. It's, oh my goodness, precious me time. I get to train. Even on
Exactly.
the days where yeah, even on those days where I roll out of bed and it's a little bit cold, even here on the Sunshine Coast, and I feel like maybe I don't want to, it is a quick reframe to that self-compassion mindset of I get to. And bringing up compassion with other people, I think it's probably something more that you embody. It's more a way that you be rather than a conversation that I specifically have with people. If I'm that kind, friendly, positive, focused, full of energy trainer in the gym, I want that energy to emanate out of me before I need to share the why. I don't know if that answered the question, but that's the way I'm seeing and feeling it.
It absolutely did answer it. And to me, that notion of self care, self compassion is crucial because often people will do for others before they do for themselves. And that leads to burnout
Mm,
in my mind. If you're also taking care of yourself, then you have more energy and more headspace and more heart space to do for others. So to me, it makes all the sense in the world to do it that way. The interesting thing for me about it, though, is that when, like, I'll give you an example. I have been practicing yoga for 20 some odd years, and I have a minimum of yoga practice that I give myself every day, and that is I need to unroll the mat and step on it. That is my minimum.
mm,
And
yes.
I'm allowed to step right off if I don't have time or if whatever, I can do that. However, I can count on two hands the number of times I've gotten on and just stepped off because I prioritize it. But also, there's something that happens in my brain and in my body that goes, "Oh yeah, I need this. This is something that's good for me, and I want to do it." So the question I have to ask you about that is that to me that's mindset and that reframing. And I do the same thing with between I have to and I get to that reframing for yourself that you get to, how does that translate to when you are working with your clients? What kind of steps do you need to take with them to get them to see that self care and self compassion as one of those pleasures of life?
First, I'll say with that yoga practice, that is amazing. You've lowered the bar to raise your chance of success, and that is a great strategy with anyone that's struggling to stick with an exercise regime. Rolling that mat out every single day, it tells you that you're the type of person that does
Mm,
this practice rather than the type of person that doesn't. So I absolutely love that. My go-to from a mindset point of view with my clients, my first step, if I get the opportunity, if they're open to it, it's a little bit of work up front, but it's laying the foundation for our future success. And that is obviously getting really clear on the why they're in the gym, what they're looking to achieve. And I don't mean the number on the kilo, on the number on the scales. I mean that huge, intense, emotional why and change of life and how it's going to impact the way that they live and everyone that they love when they achieve this goal. I want to get clear on that why, and I want them to also get clear on their most important values and beliefs,
Mm.
and then next to align those three things. So you know your why, you know your values, they're those emotional states that you're naturally drawn to. For me, it's freedom and integrity. For some people, it might be family, love, whatever it is. You make an alignment, a congruency between the actions you need to take to achieve your goal and how that supports your values and your beliefs that you're naturally drawn to. So that means every morning when you need to get to the gym or you need to prioritize that compassionate act of self-care, you see that as something that is in support of the way that you naturally are as a person rather than something in action that's in conflict. If you hadn't taken the time to lay that foundation and say family is your most important value, and that's a great value, you never need to change that value. However, you could see it is some sort of a conflict or congruency that you need to get out of bed and the kids are cuddling with you in bed and you need to get out and race off to the gym, and that's in conflict. However, alternatively, if you were to have taken the time to see that being your most fit, strong, healthy mom or dad for those children so that you're around long term and you're setting a positive example for them, that congruency basically eliminates the decision making process. You don't think, do I, don't I go to the gym? You just do, or eventually you just do. So that would be always my go to first step: the goal, the values, the beliefs. Make sure they're in alignment.
I love that you said that. And alignment to me is so important. As part of my life's practice, I'm an Aikido player, and when you're an Aikido player, alignment is so critical to everything that you're doing on a physical as well as an emotional, energetic level, that
Mm.
without it, your entire structure, your body structure falls apart. So with these three prongs, your clients are going to have unique needs, right? There are different goals that they're going to have. They're going to have different values. So can you talk about the role that mindset plays, that alignment mindset plays in I know how you achieve long-term success, you've already said, but how do you help your clients achieve long-term success with their fitness, and perhaps if they decide to go vegan or decide to at least leave some animals off their plate, how does the mindset inform that, and how does it reinforce it for long-term success?
Reinforce, of course, good word. Yeah. I mean, mindset is absolutely everything. It is either going to make your fitness journey or anything else be a constant, frustrating battle against yourself, or it's going to make it simple and sustainable. And sadly, there's not, like with anything effective, there's not one big switch to flip and yeah, you're done. There's a series, there's a series of habits and reframes and actions. And, I'm a huge fan of keystone habits and daily actions and personal standards, all of this. It's finding what resonates with an individual client. It's finding what is most compelling for them. And then bit by bit, I guess, building those mindset reframes and daily actions that work for them bit by bit. And, Isolde, this is one of the great things about getting older. When I was in my 20s in the gym and I chucked on a little bit of weight over Christmas or whatever, I'd do a bit of cardio, which I don't usually do, and I'd lose the weight within a week, and that was that. Now that I'm in my late 40s, it's a lot harder to improve any backward slide that I've made with my fitness, right? Like the exercising and eating actions are a lot tougher than they used to be if I let myself slip. What is so much easier is I've had decades now of learning what works for me and what works for my clients so far as those mindset actions. And everyone gets those, reference points for success, or hey, that didn't work so well, that felt a little bit restrictive. So there's not really one common strategy. I have a bit of a 6-step process that I might step through. It starts with the define, which we covered, where you define your goal, your values, your beliefs. The next step is align, where you make sure they're in alignment, and we've talked about that as well. The next step, a lot of people are going to need to eliminate some limiting beliefs. So in relation to the vegan lifestyle, with my clients and even with myself early days, I had to do a fair bit of work there because society puts out all these myths and misconceptions and just plain untruths
Mm,
about how hard or unhealthy it is to live
mm.
a vegan lifestyle. And yeah, you can be a junk food vegan. However, I don't advocate for that. I advocate for primarily whole food, plant-based, with a little bit of vegan junk food. But again, it is for an individual client. It's bit by bit eliminating those limiting beliefs. Oh, protein's hard. Well, hey, here you go. I eat like so much more diverse so far as the different plant proteins that I eat now compared to certainly when I was vegetarian, and certainly when I ate meat as a child. So that's a huge one. The next step, I would say, if we were going through the steps, which I don't strategically go through them, but the next one would be educate. So you get the information, you find the resources out there, whatever you're personally struggling with. Maybe it's meal prep, maybe it's family friendly food, maybe it's food for the one vegan in the house, that's you, but your partner and kids still want to eat some animals. It's finding someone to follow that shows you how to do that. I mean, again, I could go on and on. There are kind of limitless steps, and I guess it's up to me as the coach to know my client and know, hey, fair chance this step is going to resonate with them and work into their lifestyle sustainably without restriction. And then propose that step to them, and hold them accountable to actually action it and maintain it.
I love that you brought in the accountability piece because to me, holding myself accountable is the way I have to do it. My husband is, he's a cyclist. He's 6'3". He weighs 172 pounds. He's got perfect blood pressure, knock wood, So for him, he can do
Yeah.
nothing and then go for a 50-mile bike ride and come back and he's like, okay, let's go out for the night. And and I've had friends periodically we've tried to do these accountability groups and it works for a while, but then it doesn't anymore. People go off to different things. I guess what I'm wondering is, I know as a trainer, as a personal trainer, you sort of hold your clients accountable. What guidance do you have for someone who maybe can't afford a personal trainer, who would want some sort of an accountability, I don't know, partner group, or maybe are there strategies you could employ for yourself? Kind of like my yoga mat unrolling every day. What strategies would you recommend for someone to hold themselves accountable?
So again, it comes back to the type of individual you are. So think of what's worked for you in the past. Think of when you've been your most fit, strong, healthy, happy. If you've been there, look at what worked for you in the past. Did you do some sort of group exercise? It might have been free, it might have been some free running or walking group, or maybe you could start one. What was it that resonated and worked for you in the past? If you haven't had that ideal health and body shape potentially in the past ever, that is totally cool. It's just new ground, and you need to work out what does work for you. And you'll have an inkling when I say, does personal accountability and motivation resonate more, or do you need someone to hold you on track? Personally, I don't want or need anyone to hold me on track. It's not because I'm super disciplined, it's because I guess I care about making me proud first. So,
Mm.
what works for me and what works for anyone might work for anyone who that resonates with is I plan my day to come the night before. I write it down in my journal and I tick all the little boxes when I do them. And yes, most of it is work related. However, my keystone habits that haven't stuck yet go in there as well. So the gym's well stuck for me. But if it wasn't for someone to literally write that down, to know a non negotiable timetable with yourself, to know what days of the week, what time exactly you are going to do that exercising action or whatever it may be, I think that is hugely impactful. You're holding yourself accountable. You get to tick the little box when you do it. You
Mm.
build that self belief and I guess that trust in yourself that you're a person that comes through for you. And when you've got a run of a few days, and Isolde, I imagine you know this as well with your yoga, when you've got a run of quite a few days happening, it's the same with meditation. You don't want to break that run. You want to maintain that motivation. You don't want to let yourself down. Now, I guess for the individual who is more motivated or inspired by other people, I guess you seek out that mentor. And again, you don't have to pay for them. If you can pay for a personal trainer, amazing, but most of us can't. I'm a huge fan of modeling success, which is free for us to see online. And so you look for the person who has the results that you're seeking. And I would say look for someone of a similar age or even older. I'm not going to look to that 22-year-old girl with,
Right.
just I'm just not going to look to her, right? Especially if like she's got all the family money in the world and she's genetically get like that's just not the person I'm going to model personally. But seek out that person who has the results you're seeking, who
Mhm.
really importantly is living a lifestyle you can imagine living sustainably and enjoyably. So
Mm.
if you don't want to get up at 4 a.m. 6 or 7 days a week, I'm not your lady to model, right? So look for someone who you can imagine having their lifestyle and that being amazing. And we're all pretty transparent online. We share a lot, perhaps too much of what we
Mm.
do to get the results we have. So just look at that person. Imagine, well, look at what they make time for, what they don't make time for, what they prioritize, what their self talk is. We share that online. And I would say that's a really good starting point if you're looking to make a huge lifestyle change, and especially if you haven't been there before. If you can't imagine the you that you used to be when you were most happy and healthy, then peer into someone else's life and enact the things that they're doing.
Yeah, but the one thing that I would say that has to be done as part of it, because I agree with you completely, is don't judge yourself against their standard, right?
100%.
That's really important to remember because we're a categorizing and organizing species, and we tend to compare. And if you are, like Kate said, if you're listening to this and you are 57 like I am, looking at a 22-year-old, it's apples and oranges. Heck, it's probably apples and rutabagas. It's just not the same. So be aware of that comparing yourself to someone who's either much farther along on the path or who is in a completely different running a completely different race than you want to watch that. So I do want to say, Kate, though, that there's something that is fascinating to me about this. We've been talking about mindset, and you are an NLP practitioner, which I think is fascinating. Can you talk a little bit about that part of it, about neurolinguistic programming and how what role that plays both in your veganism and in your personal training, but also, frankly, in how you work with your clients?
I studied NLP probably about 10 years ago now, even more, when I was in what I like to refer to now as the business from hell. It was a
Mm,
money hemorrhaging gym franchise, and I felt completely trapped. And I was huge on self development and listening to all my Brian Tracy audios and Tony Robbins and all of that. And however I came across it, I came across, a coaching school that was in another state from me, and I did this. It ended up being a 3-year diploma, mostly online and traveling interstate for trainings as well. And it opened my mind just 100-fold more to the power of the way that we think, the way that we talk to ourselves. There's just anyone that studies NLP, we become absolutely obsessed with it early days. And then as the years go on, we're like, all right, it's not the solution to everything. It's a
mm,
huge start and it's super impactful. But bit by bit, we find, I guess, the learnings that work for us and our clients, and we work them into our lifestyle. And for me, a lot of it has been, I guess, that the reframes and the knowing that your unconscious mind is always listening and it doesn't process a negative. And I notice it in my language, which obviously isn't perfect, but in other people's language as well, whether NLP is maybe something they're aware of, or maybe they're not. And just simple daily strategies. I remember I was a very judgy person, and I learned that judgment is reflected back at you. This is in my early 20s. I was super judgy. I lived in a very vain part of Sydney, and it was all about the looks and the clothes. And I'm a couple of decades older now. I've learned a lot. However, one of the things NLP taught me was that, as I said, judgment is reflected back at you, and the more you put out into the world, the more you receive back. And
mm.
it could be said the same with abundance in a positive way, but I don't want judgment reflected back at me. And I remember bit by bit, as I was walking along the beach in Bondi every single morning on my way to the gym, I'd look at someone, and if a negative thought came up, a judgy thought, I would reframe it instantly to a positive thought about that person. And it's amazing how that daily practice, which I did consciously, after a period of time, I don't know how long, it became unconscious. And my natural thought now when I see someone is I think of the positive in relation to them. And how it impacts me is my unconscious mind was listening to that negative thought, and it didn't know whether I was talking about that other lady or talking about me. We just don't want that negativeness floating around in our brain and in our mind. And I guess that's just one little tiny example. I don't have kind of an action step as to how I make it work day to day. So maybe I could have given you more there. Maybe more will come to me down the track, but that's a start.
And I just let me tell you, Kate, first of all, you're giving me great. So don't worry about it at all. Because to me, like that practice that you started with thinking, transforming, reforming, and reframing negative thoughts about other people into positive ones. I took it a step further. For the last 20 some odd years, whenever I'm out and about, I compliment usually a woman, almost always a woman, and
Mm,
tell her she's beautiful, tell her she's gorgeous, tell her she's beautiful, tell her I love her eyes or her clothes or something. Because I feel like there is so much negativity. And especially women, we judge ourselves so incredibly harshly. And I think, and 201, and I've done this now thousands of times, 201, I've never had a negative experience. In other words, every single woman I have ever complimented has reacted positively. No one has been ashamed or insulted or any, just it's just a moment of connection. And so my question to you is, within all of this, I'm always going to be coming back to veganism. That notion of
amazing.
connection can, oh, thank you. So that notion of connection between us, we're human animals and they're non-human animals, that works for me. When we start thinking about the fact that we are all connected, that intersectionality becomes very important to me, from our subconscious to our conscious minds. And for me, making something conscious means eventually acting on it. How do we, in your opinion, bring all of that into our daily living? That notion of connection and interconnection among humans, non-humans, the planet itself.
It's one of the most beautiful things to witness when someone does initially become plant-based or vegan. And I saw this with my dear mom a number of years ago after years of me emotionally blackmailing my parents. All I want for my 40th is for you to watch What the Health, or, none of that worked. Anyway, after a particular family Christmas where, at mum's urging, I had happily masterminded a vegan feast, and it went fabulously, and she
Mm.
saw all the work, and the food was delicious. And after Christmas she said, Katie, will you watch What the Health with me? And I'm like,
Oh.
yeah, let's load up Netflix straight away. And that turned into her saying, let's give this plant-based thing a try for a couple of years, and it turned into her staying plant-based. And my point to that was the fact that I saw her become plant-based for her health, and because she was impacted by seeing people of lower socioeconomic standing and the way that they were impacted by the way that we eat and the way that we farm animals, particularly if they live near huge factory farms.
Mm.
That was her reason. However, I saw her heart open to all the other reasons to be vegan, particularly to their animals. Once they came off her plate, it's almost like we have our heart clenched and closed, and we've got the animals in their suffering compartmentalized while we're still eating them, because we have to close our heart to what we're doing to them while we're still doing it to them. Otherwise, we're just going to have to make that change. So I think it happens naturally when you adopt a vegan lifestyle. So far as steps to help people along the process, one of my biggest learnings has been to meet people where they are. And that is really, really hard. I started as that angry, passionate, mad animal rights activist vegan, and I still am at heart. I have to fight it. And I love and respect any of my animal rights activist, mad, angry vegans listening. I love you all. However, what I found is most effective, and what I found is the easier, more joyful way to live, is to focus first on everything that we have in common with other
Mm.
people,
Mhm.
particularly the people we love who are not yet vegan, instead of focusing on all the harm that they are intentionally causing. And I look at the number of dead animals on my father's plate whenever I eat with him, and I do still count them. And then I force myself to instead focus on what we have in common. And it's a hard daily practice that is not yet natural for me. However, I have hope that if that's a daily practice that I'm prioritizing long term, I will get better at just focusing on, as you say, we're all part of this big, beautiful world together. Us, the people we love who aren't vegan, all the animals that we share this world with. That's where I'm at right now, that conscious focus, and I guess a little bit, just I hate to say lowering my standards. I would never lower them for myself, but lowering my expectations of the people I love and doing my best to love and respect them anyway.
Yeah, I I love that you said that. And it's interesting to me because I before I went vegetarian, I can't even call myself an omnivore. I was a carnivore. I ate a lot of animals, and I there's no way to ever make up for that. Right? There's no way for me to ever
No.
make up for it, but I can make choices differently today. And then I think that's one of the disconnects that keeps people from perhaps trying it, because you have to reconcile within yourself
Mm,
what, you know, the way you've been. versus the way you are today
Yes.
versus the way you want to be. And so I guess the thing that I would like to ask you next about is the future. Things are changing all the time. Studies are coming out all the time. I just recently had one of the producers of the movie Christspiracy, done by the same people who did
Oh,
Cowspiracy and
amazing.
Seaspiracy, on the show. Yeah, she's great. Surya Khan was great. And so shout out to you, Surya. Anyway, so I guess the thing that I'm wondering though is like these documentaries I think are amazing. What the Health is amazing. uh what's it called, Game Changers, the twin study. There are all
Mm.
these documentaries that are coming out. What are your thoughts on the latest that's coming out, the latest studies, the latest research, the latest developments that are coming out with vegan or plant-based nutrition, and how do you integrate all of that into your programs and into your work?
I'm super hopeful as we see these studies, and none of it's that new, right? I feel like we've known for decades the healthiest way to eat. However, the people who haven't made the connection yet, they need all these studies. They need to see huge organizations and respected medical health institutions and even countries actually change their recommended
Mm.
dietary standards. That kind of would mean nothing for me. I'm in it for the animals. If my health suffered, that would be a hit I'd take. Obviously, it's been the opposite. However, for the majority of people, they will make a huge lifestyle change like this first for themselves, or potentially even for their children or someone they love more than they love themselves. And we should love ourselves first. However, people are they're in it for themselves. And I think it's only amazing that these studies more and more are coming out. They're maybe even being, they're getting some airtime on mainstream media, maybe just a tiny little bit. However, the interesting thing here is the fight that we now see. The more evidence there is, the more clear it is that you can be a fit, strong, happy, healthy vegan, and that athletes in every form of sport are absolutely killing it without killing animals. The more this is becoming mainstream and evident and everywhere, the more pushback and fight there is from status quo, from governments like ours here in Australia, from animal agriculture. And I will say, I'm a huge fan of farmers, and I want to support farmers to transition out of animal agriculture to a form of plant agriculture, which is, not only amazing for the animals, but so much more sustainable for the planet and for those individual farmers as well. So, a lot there that I guess I've kind of just shared up. But in short, I'm happy for the studies. I'm a little bit fearful of the pushback that we're now getting. However, we're in it for the long game, for the animals, for the planet, and the truth is on our side.
And mic drop. That was wonderful. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And so, yeah, honestly, Kate, I don't, I'm like, I have other questions, but I think that's it. I think there's, I
Mm.
think you've said it all right there. I am super, super grateful that you took the time, and I could keep you here. I have like 10 more questions that I could ask you that are on my research, but maybe you'll come back and we'll do some more chatting about all this, because this is so, obviously it's important to you, it's also important to me, and I think it's an important topic for all of the living beings on the planet and planet Earth herself. So I think the more we talk about it in this really sort of forward looking but also staying present kind of way is super crucial and important. So I know you've moved. I know you're developing a whole new client base. I know you've got programs and coaching and things like that. If somebody wants to know more about what you're doing and where you're doing it, what are the best ways to get a hold of you so that you can serve potentially new clients?
Isolde, I've loved this conversation and I would love to come back at some point in time. And the best way to catch up with me, to get hold of me, is via the website. It's strongbodygreenplanet.com. It will send you to everything else that I do. My two main passions are the Healthification podcast, which is 860 plus episodes
Woohoo!
deep with passionate and compassionate activists, athletes, authors, doctors, and entrepreneurs. It is my heart. Also, my heart is the Plant Positive Journal. And I feel like we are super aligned here and in so many ways because this is, I guess, the my creative solution to plant little vegan seeds all over the world and writing this journal, which is a daily planner that shares with you the most impactful steps and thought processes and actions to live a healthy plant-based lifestyle that I've gathered over my, almost 2 decades now as a personal trainer. So all of that and everywhere I am across the socials via strongbodygreenplanet.com.
Fabulous. I love it. And I'm going to put all of these in the show notes as well so that if you need to see it as a link versus hearing it, you'll be able to grab it and learn more about Kate and the incredible work she's doing as a vegan health and fitness coach, as well as someone who's advocating for the animals and for the planet. I am super, super grateful, Kate, that you are doing the work that you do. I have just two more quick questions for you, and then I will let you go. And the
Of
first
course.
question, good. Thank you. The first question, these are questions I ask everybody who comes on the show. And the first question is, what is it that gets you up in the morning? And I don't mean your alarm.
I think it's my excitement and passion and gratitude for what I do. I recognize that I am so very lucky to have the drive that I have and to be able to spend my time doing something that I am so incredibly passionate about. So hopefully it's a little more the passion and the joy. However, there is a drive there of the urgency so far as the vegan world I'm looking to help create. So, passion and urgency gets me out of bed very eagerly, never any sleep on the alarm. It's always bouncing straight out of bed.
Awesome. I love it. And the last question is this. If you had an airplane, environmentally friendly, of course, that could skywrite anything for the whole world to see, what would you say?
Oh, that's a really hard one to not be cheesy, and I know I could come up with a better one at some point in time. Um, it would be something along the lines of live vegan. It should be better than that, I know. Um,
Not at all.
yeah,
I
it
think
would.
that's great. I think that's terrific. I have no problem with that as a message for the entire world to see because that's the thing about veganism is that it's gotten such a bad rap. It's about compassion first, compassion for all of the beings you share the planet with, compassion for the planet herself, compassion for yourself, not causing harm. That's those are vegan principles I can get behind, and that's one of the things that I am so grateful that you said that for because it's something that we don't talk about from that perspective enough. So thank you, Kate, for saying it. I appreciate it.
Oh, my absolute pleasure.
Well, Kate, I appreciate you so much, and I'm looking forward to having you back on the show to talk about all the other questions that I had. Thank you again for being on the show. And if you've been listening to this and you want to know more about Kate Galli, I'm going to put all the links in the show notes. Go to strongbodygreenplanet.com, find out more about the incredible work that Kate is doing to help people be vegan and live vegan, but also in a way that is positive and lovely for them. Until next time, this is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Creative Solutions Podcast, reminding you to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the show if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2024. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.